Dating world is pretty crazy right now. What are you looking for in a partner?
It's hard to explain, but I think I would want him to just really be into me. Like, I want all the signs that he thinks I'm the best person he's ever met. Like, you know, it's all ego. And I haven't really been dating like too much, so I haven't found anybody that I really liked enough. It's stressful. I get very stressed. If I have a crush on somebody, I'm in strategy mode. So I'm 35, I'll date older men. If they're in their 50s or their 40s and they're single, does it mean that they haven't been able to make it work with somebody and therefore they're not this type of person?
Ladies, are you tired of dating avoidant men? Do you want to see me talking to a woman just like yourself and helping her fix her love life? Today, we brought on Aurora, a brilliant and very articulate young woman who has exactly the same problems as so many of you in the audience. Yes, she might have some anxious tendencies. Yes, she's dated a lot of avoidant men. And yes, she is tired of the games. She is here to talk to us about her love life and understand exactly what to do to build a secure, loving marriage with an amazing man going forward. Aurora, welcome to the show.
What are your thoughts on attachment? Do you think it's real, Aurora, or is this all hocus pocus made up by Adam and a few other quarks?
I mean, have you guys heard of the Hoffman Institute?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I did Hoffman like a couple months ago. I'm always trying various things to see if, it'll heal me from, not that I had any like major T traumas, but I was noticing a pattern of the type of relationships that I found myself in. And when I learned about, your mother and your father and how those are the two, they basically unconsciously set you up for whatever your attachment is to like the masculine in the world and the feminine in the world. And I think for sure, for me, it makes total sense with like the type of men that I go for. It's very much kind of like the relationship that I had and that I still have with my father, which is something that's kind of interesting because I think we think as we get older, our relationships change with our parents, but I don't know. I was just on vacation with my dad and I was traumatized still. Years later.
Just the flashbacks.
What kind? Now you have me curious. What kind of men do you usually go for in relationships? If it's a repeat pattern.
Usually like somebody who seems very stable, grounded, and then it usually kind of morphs into, they're actually inflexible and they actually are, to me, they're like a pillar. And I think I'm sort of a person that's super flexible to the point where I think I'll fly away if I don't have something to hold on to. So I find somebody whose like feet are so firmly planted, but then I end up hating it because they have no flexibility and they end up, everything that I originally liked, I feel like I can't work with this person. Most of the people that I've ever been in a relationship with are people who have never apologized. They've actually never done anything wrong in their whole entire lives if you ask them. So it's just interesting.
Do they not want to share their feelings? Do they not want to like open up to you? Do they not want to problem solve with you? That kind of stuff?
Yeah, and it's usually like my ex-husband, for example, had a lot of death in his childhood and his adult year. Like most of his family has passed away, but kind of tragically. And so I thought that would mean that he was a really deep person in touch with his feelings. But what I think I learned is that people cope so differently with things. And my mom's actually background is very similar to that. And she, the same thing, like they're actually just like shove it under the rug kind of people. And I'm not sure that either of them have ever really processed.
They just dissociate from it and pretend it didn't happen and just muscle on kind of thing.
But I always think I'm going to be the one to crack the code, that's going to that's going to help this person open up or even better, that I'll be like the only person they'll open up to. Then that'll put me on a special.
What are you looking to find? What do you girls want on the inside that's so interesting? I want to know.
Well, that is That's the question. I don't know. I think as I've gotten older, I realize that the guys that are quiet and mysterious, and you think, it just gives you more wiggle room to make up whatever you want about them because they haven't proven you wrong yet. And
Yes.
then once they do, you're like, oh, I kind of liked you better when you didn't talk at all.
Do they
Go back.
Do they do the love bombing up front too, where they just like saturate you with affection and kindness and just flood you with that oxytocin bonding hormone at first, and then like that tapers off and dies pretty quick?
There has been in
Yeah.
like well, I've only been dating for a year, and I find that that's been happening. I don't know if that's more of a like an older dating scenario because I don't really remember being love bombed in my 20s, early 20s when I was dating, but now that I'm older, I definitely feel like that's pretty common
I think it's
from
because the
what
cycle
I've
is
seen.
closing. Because before dating used to be like 6 months and kind of turned to a 3 months thing before you kind of got serious. Then it turns into a month. Now it's like you go on 2 dates, like that's it. It's official, some kind, And I found that as that period shortens up, because first of all, there's a lot of choice online. So if you're not getting something fast, then a lot of girls and guys will go and swipe to the next one. And that kind of condenses that period of the flirt period, the romancing period, all of that closer together. Is that, do you think, potentially what's happening?
I 100% agree. And now I have a rule for myself. This is a rule that a therapist actually gave. Well, she's a friend of mine who has told me this. And she's like a dating coach. And she said, you can't be official or call anybody your boyfriend or even have sex with anybody until 3 months. And the sex thing, I was kind of like, what's the reasoning behind that? And I think the reasoning behind all of it is just that you really don't see people in enough circumstances and you don't see the way they react in a variety of situations until at least 3 months. And I think it also, at least for me, I'm definitely one of those people who I can get a real high off the beginning of just getting to know somebody and having a crush and that whole thing. So I think like at that point I'm like, that you're mentally ill for a little while. Like you shouldn't even trust your judgment, right?
Not allowed to drive for the first month.
Yeah.
How does that work, Adam? Is that
How
attachment?
does that
What is
work?
that? Yeah.
Well, it depends how things were when we were kids, but there's that love bonding hormone oxytocin, which is flooding your brain insanely hard in that first process of the dating experience.
That's for
Where
girls, not for dudes, though,
no,
right?
it can be both. It
Really?
depends.
Oh,
If you're avoidant, no, you get none. Those receptors are
Wait,
blocked.
that doesn't happen to men?
Not
It's
really.
only women?
Well, for avoidant men in particular, if their sympathetic nervous system's activated chronically, if they have avoidant attachment style, if they're in survival mode, they harden up and they push back, and their brain says, "I'm in a dangerous environment. I should not bond." It actually blocks those oxytocin receptors completely, so that they cannot get the bonding at all. Yes, and so when they love bomb somebody, they're trying to give dopamine because all they receive is dopamine as well. So if they have sex with you early in the dating process, they're just getting dopamine, but you're going to flood with oxytocin and you're going to bond to them. He's going to become like your best friend in the world, but you become like a juicy hamburger to him. He's like, "Yeah, I'll come here again when I'm hungry." And that's why a lot of women, if they're having sex early in the dating process, you get your heart shattered. And he's like, it was fun while it lasted, but sorry, I'm out. And she's just devastated. It's because his oxytocin receptors are blocked. So that's the process. Hey guys, just pause for a second. I know that here on this program, we talk a lot about attachment issues and about fixing them and how great that feels. But I know that a lot of you in the comment sections have told me that you feel overwhelmed and intimidated at the idea of trying to go through and fix your attachment challenges. Some of you are in relationships and you don't know how to help your partner repair their attachment, share their feelings, and be more connected to you in a productive and loving way. For those of you out there who are struggling, I want you to know that we offer a special program designed to work with you on a strict schedule, even if you only have an hour a week. The Attachment Repair Program is designed to help us, all of us certified attachment specialists inside the program, walk with you through your journey on a measured step-by-step process for fixing your attachment issues. This is great for individuals or for couples who are wanting to overcome their attachment issues and never be haunted by those problems ever again. So if you're afraid of rejection, if it's hard to share your needs, and if you're feeling stuck and nothing else has worked, join the Attachment Repair Program today, and let's work together on building a great relationship for the rest of your life.
So oxytocin is for bonding, and dopamine is, I know dopamine's for learning.
Dopamine is for learning, yes, but it's a short-term pleasure like, hey, that felt good. I should do that again under X circumstance. So for avoidant men in particular, at 5 to 7 months, you have the novelty dopamine of the beginning of the relationship, which also makes you really high. Yeah, it's the novelty dopamine. You're new, this is new, those are new, that's new. All of that new car smell to the relationship, but that dies at 5 to 7 months. It's just gone. So you cannot replenish it unless you're desperately trying to spice things up in the bedroom or something like that. But it doesn't really succeed.
Eventually, you just run out of
Eventually,
ideas.
you run out and you burn out, and then you got to bring more people in, or swing from the chandelier. So it just gets more and more intense. But the oxytocin bonding is what has to happen at some point, and if it doesn't, the relationship will die. And there are some people who are the blend, who are both avoidant and anxious at the same time. We call it disorganized. That at 3 months, 3 to 4 months, their brain starts saturating with oxytocin, but then they get terrified of it and they freak out and they can't handle it and they run screaming from the relationship because they're afraid it's going to break up and it's going to be their fault. And they would rather get hurt by losing the person than get hurt by it being their fault. So they destroy the relationship on purpose. The dating world is pretty crazy right now because there's a lot of this.
That is so crazy. Wait, I have so many questions. Okay,
Go ahead.
So
Go ahead.
So the man is only receiving dopamine in the beginning. And at what point are we supposed to expect this oxytocin to happen?
So he can get healthy, secure men, which is only about 1/3 of the population right now. Healthy, secure men can get oxytocin, but men have more receptors for a bonding hormone called vasopressin. They have more receptors than women do for vasopressin, and vasopressin is a bonding hormone when you solve problems together, dudes in the military, dudes in construction sites, achieving things together and solving problems releases vasopressin. And men who are avoidant, if they haven't got oxytocin bonding at all, those oxytocin receptors then shift into even more vasopressin receptors. So then now they are set for vasopressin bonding. The problem is that avoidant men will not solve problems with you, so they will not activate either oxytocin or vasopressin bonding at all. It is purely a dopamine experience. You are just an ice cream cone. That's all it is. And so to activate that, what I tell women is 2 things. One, make sure that you can filter out men who cannot oxytocin bond. Make sure that you're bonding appropriately to guys at least that have their receptors open. And then over time, as you talk about building life goals together, building things together, achieving things together, if you go on escape room dates, if you go on dates where you're teaching each other things or learning skills together, as you settle into the relationship more, he will begin really bonding with you through vasopressin, which is an overwhelming addictive force for men. They can't handle it. You can bond with him with vasopressin in the bedroom, but it has to be a little bit into the relationship. It's not day one. You have to get into a few months into the relationship to really vasopressin bond in the bedroom with him intensely, and then he can't leave. He's just hooked for life.
Okay, so do I need to start bringing like jigsaw puzzles on dates?
Yes. Yes, right into the bed with you. Do jigsaw puzzles during. No, yeah, jigsaw puzzles help. Escape room dates really help. If on a second or third date you can go somewhere and he can teach you a skill. On the first 2 dates, you kind of ask him what he likes to do, what he knows, how, if he's really, really great at the rifle range or at dancing or some sort of skill he's great at. Hey, would you teach me that? I've always wanted to learn that. And he can start teaching you and you guys can progress through it and you're a great student and you can learn. He will bond with you extremely well. That's a great process to do it.
So are there any flags that will indicate early on, so I'm not wasting my time,
Sure,
that somebody does not have the ability to bond?
yes, absolutely. Have you seen guys who avoid talking about like their greater life purpose? They're mostly just talking about how much money they make. They mostly want to talk about their status. They want to kind of like puff up like a big rooster and look like big fancy and how smart I am. And then they love bomb you about how attractive you are, how much they like talking to you. It's all about status, money, prestige, and then making you feel good. Have you seen these guys? It's probably like most guys, right?
There's a lot of them here in
Yes,
LA.
yes, there are. LA is ground zero. A lot of my coaching clients come from LA, and New York City is another hot spot that I work with a tremendous number of people, and Miami of all places. So what you're looking for is men who they're going to get on the first date instead. You might have actually been confused by them in the past. They're going to be on the first date. They're going to start talking about long-term life goals. They'll put it on the table pretty quickly that they want commitment, but they're not asking you for commitment immediately. They just put it on the table that that's what they're looking for, and they ask what you're looking for. They're going to ask you a lot more probing questions about yourself, not interrogating angry questions, but like just talking, and they're going to go deeper faster. And this seems uncomfortable to a lot of women, and especially in larger cities, because they're not used to having intensive personal conversations up front that fast. And in LA, you're going to have fewer of these guys, so you might not see as many of them. But if you can
These are the good guys.
these are the good
ones
guys.
that-
Yep, these are the
Okay.
good guys. They're talking about life purpose. They're talking about their mission. They are already on that mission. They are already achieving things. You might have been introduced to them through your network, in fact, because people match-made you and put you together. They're going to be guys that they know what they're supposed to be building in life, and then they know how to collaborate with other people to build relationships. Then you ask them about their relationships, and they talk about how they have a mentor, they have a friend that they're running a business with, or they have people they solve problems with already, and they have reasonably good friendships they can talk about, like references, basically. And you can go through this process with them. And then what's really cool is the second date, especially, they start diving deep. They want to know about how you make decisions. They want to know about your principles, your ethics. They want to know what you want to build in life. And then they want to see if you're actually building toward that, or if it's just a nice idea someday. They'll start, again, they ask pretty personal questions pretty early, but you can ask them personal questions in return. And that's what a lot of women do wrong, is they just sit there and they're overwhelmed by the amount of questions, and it either feels uncomfortable or they don't ask questions in return. And if you're not asking him questions in return appropriately and asking the right questions to dig, like, hey, what are you building in your life? That's a great thing to ask a man. What are you building in your life? What are you working toward? What do you hope to achieve in the next 20 years? Things like that, asking him those deeper life purpose questions. You can even say, like, what's your life purpose? What's your goal? What's your mission that you're trying to achieve in life? Asking him those questions, really great data right there.
Does this sound like a good date to you? I just really want to know your opinion.
When he was saying that, I was like, kind of sounds like an interview, but
Right?
I like interviews.
A little bit. A little. Well, but so think of it. I mean, what are you looking for in a partner? What do you want in a partner long term?
What am I looking for in a partner?
Yeah.
Somebody to build with, I think, is really important to me. Somebody that I am first friends with, and that I respect, and that that makes me laugh. Somebody who wants a family. I mean, I have 2 kids, so, that's kind of non-negotiable. And somebody who is flexible in the way of, like, is able to pivot, able to recuperate and regroup, and who's resilient. And I guess somebody who is excited about life, excited about learning, excited about growing, willing to grow.
So that's a lot of very good things, by the way. I love that you can clarify all that. Those are a lot of very specific things that a very niche person is going to fulfill. And that's not bad. It's not like 1 out of 10 billion. It's a number of them, but you have to interview for that. Odds are not good if you just randomly go into it for 90 days and you just sort of say, like, how do you feel? What do you like? What are your hobbies? Like most people do. If you're just feelings based for the first 90 days, it's a complete waste, because you could get through that 90 days. You've both developed feelings for each other. It's really intense. And then they are completely zero on several of your non-negotiables. That's heartbreaking. That's just wasting both of your time. It's definitely should be an interview process, but a fun one, a friendly one. It's like interviewing a co-founder for a business. It should be fun. It should be friendly. It should be someone you can get along with and talk with and spend long hours with, but they need certain skills. You need to make sure that you're not bringing in massive liabilities, and you need to know that as soon as possible so you don't waste your time.
But do you think, 2 questions, I guess.
Yeah, go ahead.
How important do you think initial chemistry is? And do you think that setting it up like an interview like this might squash the chemistry?
Which type of chemistry? Because there's 3 types of chemistry, and most people
I
only
guess
go
what
to
I'm
one.
thinking is like sexual chemistry.
Yep. So sexual chemistry is what we would call primal chemistry, which is really, you can ascertain that usually within the first date is usually what it is. Primal chemistry is, do I like your look? Do I like your face, your smell, your voice, a little bit about your sense of humor? Sexual chemistry, that's what that is general overview. Do I find you reasonably attractive? Now, the nice thing about oxytocin for women is wherever that guy is at the beginning, as that real oxytocin builds and he makes you feel safe and cared for and loved, and you have a lifelong partner who's matching you on those levels, the oxytocin makes you rate him far, far higher. So a woman's sexual desire for a man really blossoms as the relationship grows rather than initial chemistry immediately. For men, it's he needs at least a certain threshold, like a 60 to 70% of primal chemistry. Women need about 60 to 70% of primal chemistry with a man on the first date. It grows from there. The second date is really where you start talking about personal chemistry. Do we share similar values, philosophy, beliefs, mission, goals? And way down at the bottom of the list is hobbies, because you're not going to have, frankly, as much time to do hobbies together as people think, especially if you've got kids involved and if you're going to have any more kids involved.
Your kids are your hobbies at that point.
Your kids kind of become your hobbies, but not completely. It's sharing time together. And it's even if you have different hobbies, that gives you so much even more to talk about and share about with each other rather than even just one hobby you do over and over. So that's important. The third chemistry point is what I call attachment chemistry. And it's, are we capable of solving problems together? When a problem pops up, like the guys you've talked about, is he going to default to solving everything alone and then informing me of his decision later, or do I get input? Are we going to be able to have conversations about deeper problems? Can we build our sex and passion life together so that it's fulfilling and enjoyable for both
but
of
how
us
much
for 20
input
years?
is too much input, right? Because I'm pretty sure there's a certain point after which you want to have the guy take initiative, right? You don't want him to ask permission for everything. That's weird, right?
Yeah, no, that's not how.
So none of this is asking permission. All this is having conversations. It's all having conversations.
So is there such a thing as too many conversations on a certain subject? And, like you said at the beginning, it's like sometimes it's better if you didn't say anything. Can we go back to when you weren't saying anything? Is there such a thing as is there a subject which you just should not over discuss?
I don't know if I'm doing this wrong, but like with my ex-husband, who I talk about all the time, and he doesn't care, and I don't care if he cares, but like he was such an alpha, and I really liked that. For the first 8 years, we were for quite a long time, it was like it was his plan and I went along with it, and I liked to do that because it I didn't really have to think. I just did what he wanted to do, and everything he wanted to do happened. I happened to enjoy it. It was fun. This was before we had kids, and I didn't really want to have. I had input about certain things that he didn't really care about, like types of food and things like that. But then when I had my kids, I had a lot of opinions, and it was like the relationship changed because this was something that I actually didn't trust him to take the initiative on. And I think that's one of the things that really did kill our marriage, because that whole dynamic of him being the ringleader and us having no conversations because I was fine to go with his flow. And then when that was kind of pulled away, there wasn't much of a foundation for us to stand on.
Yep. For couples where that's an avoidant man and usually more of an anxiously attached woman, kids is usually what kills it. By the time kids come around, she becomes more assertive for the kids than she was for herself. And then she really steps in to take care of the kids. She begins distrusting him more and more as he pushes back. If he doesn't bond appropriately with the children sometimes, then she really resents him for that. The kids start having anxiety problems. Sometimes that can happen. And kids ultimately is what destroys the relationship, because the problems were already there. It's just that they weren't pressured yet, usually.
100%. That's you know what it was? It was that like deep down, like I knew how much of kind of like a selfish, I don't want to call him a selfish person because he's a great father and I love him, but like I envy him in a lot of ways because he really does put himself first. He has his boundaries and he plans his life so that he's inconvenienced as little as possible. I need to take a page out of that book. But when it came to the kids, I was like, I didn't trust him to put them first because I knew him too well, So it's interesting because some of the things that I think are the sexiest are not fatherly qualities. So maybe I shouldn't have a child with my next person.
Well, I mean, it's a blend with men. Avoidant men can mimic the first half of masculinity, but they can't mimic the second half of masculinity. And anxious guys can't mimic any masculinity at all. So women are just like, no. and if women think it's like this anxious, approval-seeking lapdog guy versus this like emotionally disconnected, avoidant jerk. And if those are the two choices, then like, yes, give me the emotionally disconnected, avoidant jerk. That sounds like the best of the two. Right. It's no masculinity or the first half of masculinity. The goal is to get to the fullness of masculinity where, yes, personal sovereignty is that first piece. He has to have personal sovereignty, discipline, mastery over self. No one controls him. He is fully in self-control. But then he has to have enough bonding opportunity, enough attachment, and enough desire to care for other people and open to them where he can be fully mature and then enter service to other people through his authority, through his sovereignty, through all of that. Now serve his family or serve his company or serve the people under his authority in that way. He has to become that servant leader. Otherwise, masculinity is pointless. It's just masturbatory at that point.
Yeah. I've never thought about it like that, but yeah.
But it makes you feel safe, right? A man who is fully mastery over himself so that no one can control him. Yes, I feel safe with him. But now he is using that to care for you, not collapsing into you, but truly caring for you, providing for you and for your children from his sense of mastery. He now becomes a servant to the family in that way. That's safety, right?
Yes. I mean, I would love to, I think I need to start maybe looking at the world as though these people do exist. I'm not sure I know any of them.
This is the problem, right? This is the problem. So when you have people who are in relationships and they believe it is impossible to work with anybody else, either because they don't think other people are trustworthy, more avoidant people, or they don't think that they are worthy enough to be cared for, more anxious people, they feel unworthy and approval seeking. If you're over here, you're only going to signal specifically to people who are insecure, and you're never going to see the signals of the healthy men. Like when I say they sit down at the table and they talk to you and ask you personal questions up front, you're going to go, that feels a little personal to be getting into that fast. And then they'll assume that you're not interested, or you'll assume they're not interested. You'll have one date and it'll be gone. And they won't have done anything bad. It just made you feel a little off, like it was way too personal, too fast, and it was gone.
The suspicion is there.
And
that's
confusing.
part of the problem.
And then they're gone. And you're like, well, whatever. And then the other pool, you guys flash feelings at each other, and the relationship is feelings up front. And so those are the only people you see. And the secure people are like, well, there's some people that are interested and some that aren't. And they don't really track insecure versus secure. It's some people want to work with me and some don't. So the pools segregate out from each other and never interact hardly. They don't talk to each other. They don't see each other. As you learn that these people are real, you'll begin seeing a lot more of them. I promise you, they're there. And those are the men you want. Those are the men that will actually build a life with you.
But will they be as attractive? Because
More.
that's the thing, right?
More. No, more. Long
Why?
term. And she said, like, and like you said, Aurora, most women are like, well, the sexual chemistry, like there's zero. You have to hope it's there at the beginning. Otherwise it's no. With a secure man, you have some at the beginning, yes, and it builds over time. The female sex drive is designed to build over time into a much, much larger experience for the woman and for the partner. Hey guys, just pause for a second. I know that here on this program, we talk a lot about attachment issues and about fixing them and how great that feels. But I know that a lot of you in the comment sections have told me that you feel overwhelmed and intimidated at the idea of trying to go through and fix your attachment challenges. Some of you are in relationships and you don't know how to help your partner repair their attachment, share their feelings, and be more connected to you in a productive and loving way. For those of you out there who are struggling, I want you to know that we offer a special program designed to work with you on a strict schedule, even if you only have an hour a week. The Attachment Repair Program is designed to help us, all of us certified attachment specialists inside the program, walk with you through your journey on a measured step-by-step process for fixing your attachment issues. This is great for individuals or for couples who are wanting to overcome their attachment issues and never be haunted by those problems ever again. So if you're afraid of rejection, if it's hard to share your needs, and if you're feeling stuck and nothing else has worked, join the Attachment Repair Program today, and let's work together on building a great relationship for the rest of your life.
But let me ask you this, Aurora, because in theory, would be nice if this was how it worked. In practice, it's very rare, right? In practice, what do? We get
Maybe
into
in
our
LA.
relationships, well, everywhere. We get in relations in your 20s. I mean, I was, dating when I was 20. I had a kid when I was 26. And just my first period of the 20s was just so damn confusing. And I can tell you that if I ran into a securely attached woman when I was insecurely attached myself, and I was quite avoidant
She
and
would have run
working on
screaming
that.
from you. Yeah.
It's not that she would have run screaming from me. Like, I don't think that definition of chemistry just wasn't there. Right. So I don't know how you feel, but like, say if you were a 20-year-old and you were dating, would you really be attracting to a secure man, or would you go after the mysterious jerk?
No, it would, and I still carry this, and I try to be cognizant of it because I'm aware of these things, but sometimes, but that doesn't mean that that it's not our inclination, you know? So when I meet somebody and they start to ask me the deep questions, obviously, like, I don't mind sharing and I don't mind going deep with a stranger. I really don't. To me, it doesn't feel like a very masculine thing. Like, it almost kind of makes him seem feminine to me, that he's so in touch with his feelings and and interested in me in that way.
What's the right way for him to be interested in you, that you're like, this is the most attractive, like 10 out of 10? How does a man need to act?
I mean, to be honest, like, I think on a first date, I don't know. It's hard to explain, but I think I would want him to just really be into me. Like, I want all the signs that thinks I'm the best person he's ever met. Like, you know, it's all ego. Which then, you know, my rational brain is like, oh, well, he can't really like me that much. He doesn't even know me.
Yeah, that's a flood of oxytocin on the first date, which is that's so any man that can flag that for you is gonna do that. And healthy, secure men won't want to initiate that on the first date at all, because they don't know if you're compatible yet. So they don't want you over bonding to them, and they don't want to over bond to you on the first date.
Right. Yeah. No, that makes sense. And I know that about myself. And I am a dopamine fiend, so I know my propensity towards, like, that type of addiction. And so now I'm actually in a place where, like, I don't have a crush on anybody. I'm not dating anybody, and I'm so at peace. But I know that I need to, like, I don't want to stay here forever, but it is a nice, peaceful feeling just not to like anybody, you know, because it's stressful. I get very stressed if I have a crush on somebody. I'm like, you know, my mind, I'm in strategy mode. I'm like, how do I convince this guy to like me?
The strategy. I was just going to ask, what would have to change in the relationship? What would have to change in the relationship for it to not be stressful? And if you're in strategy mode, a lot of the women I work with, they're in strategy mode because they don't have enough information, and they don't know that it's okay to ask for that information. How are you feeling? What are you thinking? What do you like? What would you like for me to be? Who would you like me to be to you in your life? What are you building in your life? How can I join you on that? Most women have no idea they can just ask those blunt questions. Do you know that you can ask blunt questions?
Yes. And I think you're 100% correct. And I think women don't want to ask those questions up front so quickly because they don't want to seem naggy, or like we're trying to rush things, or like we're assuming we're further along than we are. But I do think some of the most painful breakups, and it could be a relationship that lasted a few weeks or a few months, but I think the most painful ones are when you feel like you didn't really get to show yourself to somebody, like you know, like you didn't even get to pull out your best tricks, and it's because you didn't get the answers.
So let me ask you this question: if a woman has to pretend she's not into the guy, if she has to pretend she's not developing feelings, that she's not the first one, is she just catering to avoidant men who are already afraid of commitment anyway?
Probably.
Is that just going to pull in avoidant guys harder? And do you think that could actually push out men who are looking for a woman who's wanting to get more serious? And I don't mean like get married on the first date, but more serious about her life and more serious about her partner faster.
Honestly, I've never felt a guy pull away from me being wishy-washy. They always come back harder. If you like, it's the dopamine thing. It's the intermittent reinforcement of not knowing, are they going to text you back right away, or am I going to have to wait a month? I feel like they always come back that way. but I don't play. But if I really like somebody, I don't have the self-control to not like. I don't play games. I'm just. I answer texts right away, and maybe I should have a little bit more of a strategy.
I love that. Yeah. So I can only go back to my own experience with my wife. We've been married for 16 years. We got 5 kids. So I would say it's fairly successful at this point. We started dating and we started really talking about the deeper things fast, what we wanted to build in life, what I was looking for, what she was looking for, our religious faith that we shared, the way we made decisions, our personal ethics. And 2 weeks after, she was so direct with me about what she wanted. She was so direct and kind and polite. She wasn't like mean and slamming her fist on the table demanding certain things. It was just she was very calm and kind about what she wanted, but very clear and direct. 2 weeks in, I said, okay, nobody else is going to marry you. I'm going to marry you. And I'm just letting you know that right now. And she said, okay. We were engaged at 2 weeks after marrying each other, after meeting 2 weeks. We got married at 11 months on the spot.
Okay, so you didn't follow the 3-month rule.
No, absolutely not. We did use the 3-date rule with 3 big dates. The first date is primal chemistry. At the end of it, you say, okay, hey, just as a heads up, this is fun. I'm enjoying myself and I've enjoyed this time with you. I just want to make sure we're on the same page. I'm looking for a long-term committed relationship down the road. We don't have to get married tomorrow, but I am looking for that. I do want marriage and
But
kids.
in 2 weeks, I want you to agree.
Yeah, 2 weeks. No, it was very upfront. Like, this is what I want. I hope you want the same thing. Do you? Where are you at? What do you want? And we both agreed, yeah, that's what we wanted. And so the second date rolled into, hey, we both agreed we're looking for a deeper thing here. So let's see if we're even the right match. Tell me how you make your decisions. Tell me about your principles. Tell me about your ethics. What's your religion? What's your everything, your real deep goal in life? What would you be satisfied with in your life? And what are you not satisfied with? And then the third date was, we're both talking about things very seriously. And let's see if we can screw this up. Let's talk about our shortcomings. Let's talk about our challenges. Where are you bad in relationships? And what are you doing to fix that right now? And we just laid everything on the table. That's why after 2 weeks, we were ready to dive deeper and be exclusive. We didn't get married at 2 weeks, but I said, I'm not letting anybody else have you. That's done. No, this is done. You are perfect. Anybody else could walk along and snatch you up. I'm ready to go. Let's get engaged and we'll see if this thing works. And we did. For 11 months, we dated. We were engaged. We built toward our marriage. Had an amazing marriage, 16 years now, 5 babies. Again, I'd say the method works.
Yeah, sounds like it. Although you do have to make the assumption that that person and you are introspective and know yourself well enough to speak honestly.
Yep.
And accurately.
Well, that's what the dating process afterward is for. The initial couple of conversations is you set the foundation and see if they know who they are, how they answer, what they say. And then you spend the next 6 months really like stress testing that. And anytime they deviate from it, you don't yell at them. You just go, hey, at the beginning you said this and now I see you doing this. What's going on? Tell me about that. And you poke every red flag, and either it's going to turn into a black flag and end the relationship, or it's going to turn into a green flag. And they're like, hey, you know what? You're right. I am going to work on that. Or here's what I'm already doing to fix that. Hey, I noticed that too. Or I'm glad you asked me about that. You do that for 6 months continuously. That's how you actually build trust. And that's where the bond begins to deepen. That's where the woman actually sees, okay, this is a man who knows what he wants and he says what he means. And then he follows through on it over and over and over. And if I catch him on something, he actually fixes it and he's introspective and he's honest and he follows through on his word, and you can test the crap out of him. And a good man is not going to be like crying and hiding from you or getting all pissy and mad, right? He's going to be like, you know what? I do want to be a better man. Thank you for calling me out on that. I appreciate that. And that shows that you will be a great wife who will hold him accountable, help him grow, but also be gentle and sweet at the same time.
Let me say this. I can imagine, and I'm going to take a bet and assume that Aurora's thinking that, you know what, this just probably doesn't sound exceptionally fun nor romantic for the first part of a relationship, because I got to say, it kind of feels like it kills the magic. You know, you want to have that magical part of the relationship.
You sound like Disney. You sound like
Well, that's
Disney.
what we've been sold.
I know.
Right? That is exactly what we've been sold. We've been sold that relationships are supposed to be exciting. You're supposed to roll in if you're a dude, you know, you're supposed to be all, you know, white,
how's that
white
approach
horse.
working out?
Well, we're going to talk about that later.
Yeah.
But, and we can talk about that. But my point is that so many people are kind of like, they want to have that perfect romance, and they want to have that perfect romance with the magic of these things happening on their own. But it seems like every single time everybody tries that, it doesn't work out.
Because that's not human relationships. That's not how they work. A woman is not supposed to meet a man in the forest and be like, you know what? We should have sex immediately. Our sexual chemistry is great. Let's have sex right now. I don't even know your name. Here, Mr. Man in the forest. And they immediately have sex. She's like, now let's just do this for 8 months without any commitment whatsoever. And that's not how it works.
That's not what half of Hollywood movies say.
That is not how it is supposed to work. You're supposed to get and know and trust and bond. And yes, there should be attraction there. But the real deep bonding and attraction that lasts for 95 years of life, where you're both old and wrinkly on the rocking chairs together on your front porch watching your great grandkids play, the way you get there is building and stress testing this at the beginning. You don't rush it and then rely on magic and fairy dust.
What do you think, Aurora? Is this a fun and sexy modern way of doing things, or is it boring and old?
Sexy over time.
What I'm willing to say is that I am not the person to ask because I have not achieved it yet. So, I mean, maybe, what I did before wasn't working. So I might have to try a different method. But I do have a question about, well, and also I do think stability is sexy. So and I think once you start having sex with somebody as a woman and you are attached, like that is sexier than anything else.
So you better make sure he's stable, cares about you, he keeps his word, and then it blows up from there. So imagine the next 50 years of that growing every year for 50 years.
So I'm willing to give up that, cocaine rush of the beginning of, somebody who just wants to like devour me. It's a fun feeling, but I'm a little bit over the roller coaster of all that.
Now imagine 50 years of a man who more and more wants to devour you every year for the rest of your life.
Yeah, that's hot. But I do have a question for you because, okay, so I'm 35. I would date up to like, my ex-husband was 15 years older than me, so that might also point to my daddy issues. But like I'll date older men, usually not younger, only because I feel like younger men, they don't have kids and my life is too like grown up for them. So I'm not attracted to them. But my question is like, do these people, if they're in their 50s or their 40s and they're single, does it mean that they haven't been able to make it work with somebody and therefore they're not this type of person?
Yes.
Okay, so
yes.
so then there's no hope.
No, absolutely there is. So, and here's what's amazing, and there's this gigantic revival and awakening going on right now where men and women are becoming more aware. It's some of my work that I do, everybody else, there's so much work out there. You mentioned the book Attached, there's that out there, but men are also going through their own growth, as women are, men are as well. There's a tremendous amount of people waking up, coming out of bad relationships and seeking information. Probably about half of my own audience, yes, is women wanting to learn, but there's a gigantic, massive audience working and paying very close attention to me of men who are wanting to grow, wanting to do this, wanting to offer this, becoming more honestly mature in their masculinity instead of just the swaggering Andrew Tate model, like a real, authentic, healthy, loving, mature father figure in a family. Wanting to be husbands, wanting to be fathers, wanting to step in and guide and protect and nurture in that capacity. Yes, there's a lot of men growing. So when you ask me, does it mean they haven't been able to make it work? Absolutely. But it's like a gap on a resume. You ask somebody, hey, I see that you have a 2-year gap on your resume. What's going on here? And there's a difference if you say, well, that was where I was sitting in my basement smoking crack playing Xbox for 2 years. Or I was feeding orphans on the street of India for 2 years. And here's a picture of the orphanage I built by hand with all of my skills. There's very different answers to that. So asking a man that, quite honestly, a woman should be asking a man, neither one of us has made it so far in a great relationship. Here's my end of things where I have contributed to not building great relationships. And here's what I'm already doing to fix that. Here's the steps I'm already taking. And here's how I am ready for the next one. And then she can challenge him and say, you're obviously here too. You're 35, you're 40, whatever it is. What's bringing you here? What has been your challenge? And what are you already doing to address it? And challenge him that way on that third date, I would say. Not the first date, but the third date, fourth date. Challenge him on it. See what he says. The best men love challenges. And they'll say, you know what?
True.
I hear that.
Yep.
Here's where I'm at. here's what I'm doing, and I love it, and he will tell you about his life and he'll invite you in. If he's approval seeking, he'll collapse at this point and you'll weed him out. If he's really like mean and aggressive or avoidant,
And
even
he's a jerk.
and he's a jerk, he'll say, how dare you? Or, hey, I'm pretty good. It's been everyone else's
It's like
fault.
an insecurity thing.
Yeah. And like you said, these are the guys that they've never done anything wrong in their life. I do nothing wrong. I've just dated crazy girls who are just stupid and it's everyone else's fault. Let me tell you about my ex-wife. Done. You're done at that point. But the man who steps forward and takes ownership and shows you how he's already improving himself, that's the man with the gap in his resume. That's a good one. Does that make sense?
Yes, which is why I think you should start a matchmaking business, because I think I should try to find my next husband like outside a therapist office.
There you go. I'll filter him for you. Send him to me and I'll filter him for you.
Yeah. But that's actually a good question because, for example, for me, I came out of my divorce and that was dramatic to say the least, and it was interesting. And then I worked with Adam for about 2 years afterwards to actually fix my own attachment issues and kind of work towards my next relationship. So I've been in a relationship for almost a year, and I actually took what I was initially calling the boring approach, right? It wasn't the crazy stuff. It wasn't all of the insanity.
Yeah, tell me. So after making fun of it all during this whole episode, tell me how the boring approach is working for you.
It's fantastic. It was initially very, I'm not going to say calculated, but cautious, you know?
Sure.
And it was cautious because I was very afraid of not just, getting hurt, but also hurting the other person. What if this screws up? And as we kind of made a list, it was really weird, but we kind of made a list of things we wanted to check off, certain experiences, certain things we wanted to talk about. And as we went through that list for about the next 8 months and we started checking things off, there was this curvature. First, it was excitement. And it's like, oh my God, this is going great. And then there was this weird dip, and I was like, we're getting through the list, man.
Yeah.
We're not running into anything. There's no problems here.
Yeah.
And there was a point where I was just like, something's horribly wrong.
It got too real.
Yeah, and then I had to work through that for a bit, and I go, I feel better. And it's because I was so used to going left, and then all of a sudden you go right, and almost like the G-force that doesn't happen just makes you freeze and rework through it. But that's because I have a kid. That's because I went through a divorce. That's because I worked with Adam. And he spent 2 years of a lot of sessions kind of working through this stuff. And that was a shocking difference for me. I'm like, man, this was wild because I had zero clue how to do this otherwise. And if not for all of those things, I would have gone left 10 out of 10 times.
But Aurora, do you hear an avoidant man reformed, gently reformed through lots of...
You were avoidant before. But what does your left look like? Is that when you shut down and...
It's kind of like your standard relationship, right? Kind of like what you say. You meet somebody as a man, in that space. You focus on success, focus on health, you focus on maybe certain hobbies. For me, it was martial arts. I was consulting. I was doing, media at that point. And you just kind of dedicate your life to that. You meet somebody you like, you typically will go for the immediate attraction, the sexual attraction being usually primary, and then there's a little bit of caution. But as soon as you start playing the steps, and the steps typically are that you're trying to impress on the first date, and you're trying to show up in your most masculine sense, but it very quickly turns into a little bit of an ego trap. It's an ego trap because you need to show up a certain way. You have to look a certain way, feel a certain way in terms of masculinity. There's certain kind of gateposts you have to clear in terms of, when you guys go on what date, by what time are you guys dating, at what point are you guys intimate, et cetera, et cetera. And very quickly turns into a pattern, and you very quickly get bored, right? Because once you clear all the goalposts, it's like, well, there wasn't anything different here than have been in the last couple of relationships.
But see, by having the conversations, you proved it was possible to collaborate and work together, opened up the oxytocin receptors. Compare and contrast, because you've been with your girlfriend about a year now. Compare and contrast the initial, what Aurora called the cocaine rush, and I love that, it's so true. Compare and contrast that initial cocaine rush that plunges off a cliff and leaves you like ashes, compared to where you are actually bonded with your girlfriend now. Contrast that for me. What's the difference?
The buildup is much more interesting. The beginning is much more delicate, First of all, you sense all the different areas where things might not work out. Because when you find somebody you're attracted to, you want to make it work no matter what, and those true love conquers all. But there, you actually have to find reasons why you should continue, right? Really is to say, I can continue if A, B, and C happens, not because, there could be some form of compromise. And that makes it nerve-wracking, right? Because at any point you can say, sorry, this isn't it. Like there's only one way this is going to work and hundreds of thousands of ways in which case it won't.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the difference.
So disappointing because you have to be so ready to pull out any time and just not.
But what's worse, it's not that you're ready to pull out. What's worse is that once you commit and you clear the gate, that gate is closed. Right? That has happened. That is now real. You cannot go back and change the past if all of a sudden you start checking out later. Like this is it. That checklist is a checklist to the end. Because at the end, when all those boxes are checked, what choice do you have, whether you're afraid or not, to accept that this could be actually the perfect person for you?
Mm-hmm.
And you have no more excuses at that point.
Correct. Except your own fear. Yeah.
Well, fear is not an excuse. Fear is an emotion. Okay, whatever. Get over it.
You know what's cool though, as you do this process, people are so focused on themselves internally. What am I feeling? What am I wanting? What am I going to do about it? That they forget that when you have those feelings in a good relationship, the benefit of this method is you go to the other person and say, hey, you know what? Just a heads up. I'm having this experience on my side. What are you having on your side? What does this mean for us? Where are we at right now? And they're like, yeah, I'm kind of having that too. And you're like, amazing. Okay. Well, what do you need so that you can feel more relaxed in this relationship? And they tell you, and you're like, we can do that. And they go, well, what do you need? Well, I would need to see this, or I would need to talk to your friends, or I would need for us to go on a trip together, or I would need this. Can we do that? Yeah. And then you test it together. It's collaboration. The point of all of this is it's no more guessing. It's no more games.
It's a proven method type of thing.
This is a proven method, but then you have two brains. You have two people that are putting this together like, hey, why don't we test if this works? Hey, why don't we have this conversation? Hey, what do you need?
Aurora, what is your checklist? You're a mom with kids. You got 2 kids?
Yeah, 2.
Nice. So you're a mom now. You really have a lot of responsibility. You have a podcast. You have everything that's going on for you. What is your non-negotiable checklist? What things do you have to clear in a partner for you to call him a perfect partner?
Well, I have it on my phone somewhere.
Amazing.
I love that. I love it.
You're ready for the interview.
Here we go. See?
Somebody already told me to.
See, that's what kills me. You already have the list. Why not just make the list explicit to the guy you're dating?
Okay, so she calls it her strict 7, and she comes up with the first 4, and then I come up with the last 3.
Nice.
So she says that he has to make you feel physically, financially, and sexually safe. And financially doesn't have to be like he makes a lot of money, or It just has to be like he's not like a couch surfer. Like he's got his own thing going on, and
safety first is a good thing.
Okay, so I said my number 5 is like that he has his own job. What I say here is that he's like has some success in his life. What I mean by that is I want him to have something that can prove to me that he's able to build something that works.
It sounds like you want him to have a mission beyond you as well. He doesn't want you to be, you don't want to become his purpose in life. You want him to have something he's building and he's already building toward.
Right.
Yeah. You're not dating for potential. Yeah. I hear that.
Open. Yes, exactly. Open to self-development and spirituality.
Continues to grow and advance as a man. Yes.
He has to be ready and free to be in a relationship, nothing complicated, because this is because of some of the people I've dated. It's like you find out, oh, well, they're not actually divorced yet. Correct. And like maybe there's still something going on with this other person. They have to be available.
Loud and clear. Those are really excellent ones. I like that.
Yeah, but I mean, otherwise in a list, like, because I think one of my problems is flexibility. Sometimes when people show up and one of these is kind of, I'm like, okay, well, I don't know. It's hard to know when to turn away because of something that maybe can be fixed.
Do you ever talk to them about that? Flat out.
I haven't really found anybody I've only been like legally divorced for a year. Mm-hmm. And I haven't really been dating like too much. So I haven't found anybody that I really liked enough. And I think what I've done is kind of like pulled away so that and then eventually it falls apart. But I usually don't want to be the one to break up with them. So I'll just like let them do it. And
why?
Before I'll disappear.
Why not say thanks, but no thanks?
I have done that. It doesn't come as easily to me, I think, And I don't think it's like a pure, because I don't want to hurt their feelings. I think because I don't like to close a book. I think I'm waiting to see if maybe something will change. I don't want to make a decision too quickly about to close. I don't want to close a door too quickly, I guess.
So you see a red flag and you don't like them enough yet to address it, but you also don't want to close the door too quickly. So you won't ask them about it. You just kind of wait. What if in all of that, the one change you made was you brought up the red flag and said, hey, you know what? I've noticed this thing. Tell me about this. And you just push on it and see what he says. What if that? What might change?
I could do that. I think I would probably get an answer that the last guys that I've dated, I think I know what the answer would be, and I wouldn't like it, and then it would probably force me to have to close the door.
Cool. Doesn't that save you time?
It would. It really would.
I gotta ask, but so during this process that they're kind of walking themselves out, do you still stay committed to them, or are you potentially already looking for somebody else at that point? At what point are you done?
No, I usually, even with my divorce, I didn't date for a full year after we got separated, and he was sleeping with other people during our marriage. So, I think my problem has never been that I want to be with somebody else, or it takes me a little while to regroup after someone. I'm not just ready for somebody else.
That's normal. Most women are monogamous that way. To be honest with you, most women are not looking to jump that fast. That's a good thing.
No, yeah, I definitely am wired monogamous, very much so. So that's why dating is kind of.
Where are you dating right now? Are you dating online, or just where are you finding people?
So I think this is my other issue. So I'm only on one app, and it's Raya, and Raya is exclusive. Basically, if you think you're special,
Yeah.
if you think you're too good for the other apps, you go on Raya.
Yes.
So I'm already working with a pool of people who think that they are the elite, which is a problem.
What have you found as a pattern? Are they truly elite, or is it just all ego?
No, that's the thing. Well, some of them, by elite, I mean you're going to find some billionaires on there. They're usually about 900 years old.
Yep. But avoidant attachment allows men to rise through the ranks very hard. So when you're dating to that pool, it's probably 95 to 99% avoidant men.
Every single business owner, exec, CEO, you name it, has been on this podcast, always avoidant. Or disorganized. Yeah. Sometimes they're disorganized, in a while, but that's the crazy ones. But everybody else, I've been in business, now for almost 15 years. First in corporate, finance, consulting, media, everything. I have not met one single securely attached executive or entrepreneur ever. They just don't exist.
Yeah.
Well, that's disappointing. Does that mean I have to find a starving artist because they're
no whole other problem.
No. Well, actually, who is supposed to find, if not the execs?
So some established business owners is some of the men you can look for. Men who are in positions of leadership, maybe not necessarily at work. Maybe they're head of a division or something, but maybe not in a VP side of sort of status. A lot of them are in more professions where they're caring for people, maybe like a dentist or something like that.
How about a carpenter?
Dentists, carpenters, yes. A lot of tradesmen, actually.
Jesus was a carpenter.
Was a carpenter, right? Indeed. Exactly. It's a good profession. Quite frankly, a lot of these guys are going to have leadership positions outside of work because they do more volunteer work. They work with causes. They're in churches.
Like a pilot?
No. So a lot of surgeons. I have a lot of surgeons on my list. I have a lot of political figures, a lot of Hollywood figures, a lot of pilots, a lot of special forces guys. Those guys, business owners especially, though, before anybody else.
That's a no list, by the way.
Yeah,
Aurora.
Special forces sound really hot. And
but all of these men, here's what's amazing. All of these men can do work to become more secure and become ready for a family and ready for love. But you have to be able to push on them. You have to ask them those questions. And here's what's cool is the guys who have done the work to go from avoidant into secure, they want a woman who asks those questions because that signals to them that you are self-aware enough to also match them. If they have done that work and gone from a darker avoidant place into more secure behavior, they don't want a woman who just comes along and has fun for the first like 3 months because they're like, I don't want this. This is not a woman who understands.
Well, because
This
they've
is
been burned.
They've been burned, but they also don't want that sort of like shallow relationship anymore. They've done that game. They don't want the cocaine game anymore. They want the full like meat and potatoes of the relationship, which means building slower but deeper conversations. So if a woman comes on too gentle and she doesn't come in ready for that kind of conversation, she is too nice.
It's not gentle. It's more so if she's too afraid or she's so avoidant of the conversation.
Yeah.
Gentle is okay.
Accommodating is the word. If she's too accommodating, done. Those guys have no interest.
But I will also add, if they do the work, they will hold on to that relationship forever.
Oh, yeah.
Because that is the purpose for which they've been building over years and years and years, and becomes like a focal point of every part of their life, where they've actually had to give things up and kind of curve towards this one goal. And this is when every part of the male brain actually starts working together to achieve that. That's the vasopressin bonding. Everything comes towards this one relationship, this one person. When that checklist is done, that's it. They're in. This is for life. This is final.
He's lifelong monogamous to the woman who connects with him at that point.
Exactly.
Lifelong, which is where that safety comes in, the building sexual drives, the building intimacy over years and years and years of decades of connection. That's what he's
for somebody who needs to be in therapy. That really should be on my list, because nobody is going to come to these conclusions on their own.
A lot of them hate therapy because therapy is feminized so hard. I was a marriage and family therapist for many, many years. And most of the people in the field are delivering very feminized therapy. So these men, it is like sandpaper on their skin to even go to therapy.
Oh, dude, I went to 2 therapy sessions in my life.
Yeah.
One after the other. And I remember like the first session was like, okay, tell me what's going on. So I kind of like, okay. And I go through the factual list and I got nothing.
Yeah.
Okay, our hour's over. How are you feeling? I'm like, that's it?
Yeah.
That's it? I'm like, okay, maybe. I was like, maybe it was me. So I come in the second week and I continue. And she's like, my therapist goes, oh. I'm like, I'm out.
No, yeah, they're
I'm
done.
gone.
So therapy, most women look for that. They're like, okay, he needs to have therapy on his. No, therapy, absolutely not. But a mentor, he needs a mentor, and or he needs coaching. If he talks about coaching, men learn best coaching, direct one-on-one. They learn from mentors. They learn from other people who've done. Maybe it could be a female dating coach or a male dating coach, not a red pill guy who's going to teach him to be more avoidant and hurtful and manipulative, but a man who is teaching him, or a woman who's teaching him to be really ready for marriage, problem solving. That's that vasopressin bonding. He needs a mentor, a coach, a guide, someone he's been learning from consistently. That's what you need to look for.
Somebody can call him out on his crap.
Yes.
Very important.
He should love accountability from that person. And then he should grow beyond that, where he also has friends who keep him accountable as well.
One thing I really liked when I met Adam and he started coaching me, he gave me a list of 150 questions. And right off the bat, he had my interest.
Yeah, I tore you apart.
Because about like 60 questions in, I was just like, what is this? And then by like question 80, I'm like, okay, I need to see this result.
Yeah.
And then you actually have to change. Once you hear an assessment, you have to do something about it.
Yeah. I have a coach too. I don't have a therapist. I have a life coach.
Beautiful.
And she's great because she can give her opinions, which I appreciate. You know, sometimes I feel like with therapists, you're just like, what do you think? Like, hello.
And that's why you don't look for a man who's into therapy, because then he's maybe a different kind of guy. Even you are focused in on a coach like that. Look for a man who is learning intensively, and ask him about those programs. You have to ask him, what are you doing to learn? One of your non-negotiables was he has to be open to learning and growing continuously. You need to be asking about that like second, third date. How are you growing? What are you learning? What are you working on?
Any man who has a coach, like this needs to be something that you could check off on a dating app or something.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
In a haystack.
100%. 100%. You need to be dating these guys
services. No kidding.
I know. Did we just come up with a business plan?
Yeah. Well, even so, a lot of my coaching clients, I talk to them about how to talk to men in DMs, or how to, and a lot of my guys like how to talk to women in DMs. These are things you can screen for fairly quickly. You could say, hey, but you could say, hey, just a heads up, I am looking for more of a committed relationship going forward. Is that something you want? And if so, what does that look like to you? That is a great initial conversation for a dating app in the DMs, because it will weed out 90% of guys, and the last 10% will be able to give you a reasonable answer for what they're looking for. That should be your criteria before you even get to a table.
But here's the thing. That's not how it used to be before, right? Because before, the way it used to work is that you would get introduced, your family, your friends, your
Yes.
church community,
Through all
whatever, they used to do all this for you. They would bring you this like pre-filtered man or woman and say, you guys should talk. And then you can dive into the chemistry because all those boxes were checked. Here, you basically have to do the work yourself.
I know. Where's the village?
Right?
That should be the name of the matchmaking service. The village.
The village. That's what. That's what.
That's right. Her village and his village.
And that's what matchmakers are. That's what matchmakers are stepping in and doing now. Is they're kind of artificially doing them in different ways. Matchmaking is one of the better processes. But yeah, if you can get match made through your family friends network, it's best. If you can't, a matchmaker could work. And if not that, you need to be really proactive in the dating apps. Women are they are being too accommodating. They are trying not to scare off men. And if you can scare them off, you should scare them off. And they're also not signaling that you are ready for something serious if you're not upfront about what you want in a polite, kind, friendly kind of manner. Asking him like, I'm looking for a committed relationship. I see on your profile that you are too. What does that look like to you? Ask him that question, pose that challenge, see what answer he gives you. If he's like, well, I don't know, I just put it because I thought I would get chicks, that's a problem. But if he's like, this is what a committed relationship looks like to me, what about you? And he comes back and he has that conversation and it's great. That's a great indicator that you should bother going on a first date with this guy.
What do you think about older guys? For some reason, I think I'm a target for older men because they see me with 2 kids and I think they kind of look at me like I'm like, they think that like I think they kind of pity me, which is interesting because I feel more free than I've ever felt. And like very much, if anything, I now know that I don't need a man for anything, other than just like to have a partner because I can do life alone. But I do feel like in my DMs, there's men. So I'm 35. A guy messaged me yesterday. He's 55. Oof. And this was like a very successful guy. He looks 900 years old. I'm not going to date. I don't think I'm going to go on it. I'm not going to go on a date with him because I'm not attracted to him. I already know that. But like, what is that?
So I'll tell you this really quick. The research shows that people are happiest within 5 years of each other. And especially if the man is a little bit older than the woman, but within 5 years is the happiest range of tolerance.
Okay. Within 5 years.
So 40 should be your upper limit, most likely, maybe 42. But that's generally speaking. So the guys who are much older trying to date down, very avoidant. They want to have total control. They want to be able to say, I am older than you. I have dominance. I have control. I know better. You should just listen to me. And then it's a status thing to be able to pull a woman who's 20 years younger, especially a young blonde who does her makeup like you do and very feminine. That's what he's looking for. It's a status signal. And then third, it's because, going back to it, they can't get their oxytocin receptors opened at all, so they're dopamine fiends. So here's the thing. They have to date a woman who is as beautiful as possible. A lot of my guys come in at 55, 60. They've dated literal supermodels from around the world. And they're like, Adam, I can only stay attracted to a woman for 5 months, and then she looks unattractive to me, and every month after that, she drops off like 2 points. And by the end of a year, like literal supermodel to 1 out of 10, like bag lady, gross. I can't even stand to look at her.
Oh my God.
So they want to date a woman who's a model and heavy makeup and like everything because he's like, maybe I will get 1 more month of dopamine out of her. That's why they are desperate because their bonding mechanisms are so broken.
It's like the Leo DiCaprio syndrome, right?
Yes.
As soon as somebody turns 30, he dumps them.
Yep, they're dead.
I know.
They're dead. That's dopamine.
This kind of makes me want to look like maybe I should start going on first dates with like no makeup on. And just, like I want to set the bar really low so that they can be like pleasantly surprised every time I see them.
Do a surfing date. You're in California. Do a surfing date. Then you can excuse a no makeup. And then like it's like a scene thing.
Be aware of who you're marketing to. It's just like marketing. Be aware of who you're marketing to. If you go in like absolutely drop dead gorgeous, everything perfect, the man you're catering to is one who is so driven by dopamine and sex that's what he's going to lunge at that first date. Go in there.
Only if he reacts though, because here's the thing. If you show up and you're doing it for yourself, it's one thing. But if a man like hyper responds to that,
Yes, too much.
you know that's too much. If like a guy just goes like, "Oh, you look nice, you look wonderful, you look beautiful, cool, let's continue,"
Yes.
and does not accentuate it, I think that's probably more of
That's
a green
true.
flag than a red flag.
Absolutely, yeah. He shouldn't be all over you in the first date. A man who's serious, he's thinking, okay, like I was, he's thinking, if we are going to be paired up together for the next 40 or 50 years, building a life together, raising kids, blah, 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 I don't want to sleep with you today. I don't want to jump
you don't
in and
turn
have
on that
feelings.
game.
No, I'm not going to play that game today. I'm going to get to know you over the next couple of weeks. We're going to have some conversations. If it goes well, then yeah, I'm going to tag in and be exclusive with you. And then we're going to do some testing and we're going to play this game and I'm going to build for the next 40 years. A smart man plays it that way. He's not like, come on, we got to have sex right now under the table.
But that's
Come on, let's go.
Maybe that's what's confusing, right? Because if you're coming into to that date full sexy, like really looking for that initial like fire of attraction, and he doesn't give it to you because he's thinking, okay, maybe this is the woman I want to marry in a year. Then you're expecting A, he's giving you B. No wonder you guys don't connect.
And some women dress up too much for the first date and they signal to a man that they're looking for sex on that first date or that they're available for it. And
Even if they're not.
Even if they're not. And even if they're not, they're just trying to look really good because they're used to having to. And especially in LA where image is everything.
Yeah, no kidding.
Show up to the date looking a little bit less. Oh, just a little bit less. Wear a nice pair of Mary Janes instead of the stilettos, like kind of thing like that. Like
Yeah. Okay. I'm glad this is recorded because I'm going to need to go back and take notes on all of this.
I hear that a lot.
It just feels okay. So I'm trying to take a shortcut because I'm like, okay, I'm never going to find this guy. But like, what about if I found one who's avoidant attached, because they are,
Sure.
he's an executive, whatever. And then I tell him as one of my requirements, he must go see a coach.
What if I fix him? What if I fix him?
I gotta say,
I get that a lot.
We have actually seen that under Adam's practice.
I get so many of those
people
guys.
come in and the requirement for their partner before marriage.
I do.
Or through marital troubles where they must go see Adam.
I do. I have a lot of it where the guy's like, I'm here because my girlfriend says we can't get married until I do premarital coaching with you. Okay. I know the program. I run you through it. You can at least make sure that he's open to the ideas. At least make sure that he's done some growth. He should have a coach or a mentor, maybe in other areas, so that he knows he can get problem solving from somebody. Most avoidant men who don't have a coach or mentor, they still are stuck in, I must do everything myself. No one can help me. So if he's done some programs where he's learned from people, if he's got a co-founder as a business partner, he's vasopressin bonded with that person. If he has some experience doing bonding and some experience with solutions, he can be petrified, right? Like most avoidant guys, I've split avoidant now in my own practice as I'm updating attachment theory. If he's ethically avoidant, he'll be scared and nervous when you have the relationship conversations with him. And he'll do like you do. When I bring something up that you don't like, they go like this. They turn their face from you and they look at you with one eye.
That's for a bad eye.
They're stressed
if
out.
you poke it, then at least it's
their
not a good one.
nostrils flare and they get really tense, but they still listen. They stay and they listen and they're absorbing information, but they're stressed. And it's one eye. Andre, you do this too. You look at me with one eye.
With a bad
See,
one.
one eye. There's
with a bad one.
With the bad eye, right? In case you poke it out. And they'll listen. But you still have to be having the conversations with them. You still have to be pushing a little bit. You have to ask. They'll answer. They'll answer. They'll think, and they'll be careful, and then they'll answer. But you still the same process. It's the same process. He doesn't have to be perfect. He won't be. Nobody will be. But he has to answer. He has to work with you on this. He has to be willing to watch some videos. I have 100 long and short videos on my YouTube channel for women to watch with men. 700?
700 videos over now.
I thought we had 1,000.
Is it? I don't know.
I
I
my
stopped
God.
counting after 700.
My God, we've got so many. So sit and watch videos with him. Read the book. Well, maybe not read the book attached, but go through the audiobook version. Go through a video course with him. Go through some information and just introduce the idea of communication together and see what he does. Introduce ideas and say, I could not marry a man who didn't work with me. So let's work together and see if we can work together as a couple. Let's play some of these games together. Let's do some card game things together to introduce these ideas. Let's see how open you are to this. Really, really dig into it and tell him what you're doing so he can work with you explicitly. Don't do this around him hoping it will work out, because if you tell him explicitly what you're doing and he doesn't want to do it, he'll just run. If you tell him and he's ethically avoidant, he'll be nervous and he'll do it with you, and then you'll bond and grow. And that's one way that you can do that too. Yeah. But you have to be as a woman, pushing on that. You don't have to be leading, but you have to be letting him know. You set the challenge, you see if he rises to it. Drop the handkerchief, see if he picks it up.
And how quickly? Because you're saying the avoidant attachment already start to pull away, what, at 3 months?
About 5 months, they really pull away when the dopamine's dead. Disorganized men will pull away at 3 months when they are over bonded to you. They freak out and run, and they'll think of any reason at all to sabotage the relationship. Because it actually, their desire for you begins to kill their desire for you. Their high level of desire kills their attraction to you, and then they start thinking of any reason possible.
Way to live.
It's very paradoxical to them and to you. But purely avoidant men, no, they'll stick around for a good 5 to 7 months typically before problems start to pop up.
And then an anxious attached person,
you'll be so unattracted to him that you'll feel your bodily moisture everywhere just drying up like a starfish. You'll be like, nope, not this guy. Please, anybody but this guy. You'll be so pitying him, he'll friend zone immediately. And you'll be like, how do I let this guy down easy within the first 30 seconds?
That gives me some hope, because I thought maybe I just was somebody who didn't have a sex drive, because with my ex-husband, like, I would do anything to avoid having sex with him. I was just like, pretend to be asleep or like, whatever, all the excuses. And I felt bad because I didn't know why that was, but I think it was just, I was anxious to touch.
Long term, a woman's sex drive will go up through the roof if she feels oxytocin bonded and safe and secure. Over time, you're going to be like, your sex drive is going to climb through the freaking roof. And at 50, he's going to be fighting you off with a stick. But that is the power of secure attachment.
Do you know how common that is? Grab that book, Adam.
I know, but that's
grab that book.
But that's why. But that's why. It's because we have insecure marriages where women don't feel safe for love.
Adam wrote a book called "Exhausted Wives, Bewildered Husbands."
Yeah, it was
exactly about that problem.
It is. It is. It kills it. And for women, the cocaine rush at the beginning, and then it's just decades of a dead bedroom where they're just disappointed and depressed, and the man's chasing her for mechanical sex.
I think we just basically got romance backwards in today's society, because we try to get everything at the beginning. In the first 6 months, you're trying to get 50 years worth of experience. And after that is just like a gradual slope as you get older and eventually like shrivel up and die. As opposed to, you're actually supposed to go up in your relationship.
Slower to start, and then amazing, hot, burning passion forever. Like
for a long time.
I have 5 kids. We've been married 16 years, and Andrey is telling me, Adam, calm down, slow down, don't have any more kids. And he came out to my house, and he's looking at me and my wife like, you guys need to knock it off, stay away from each other.
So
I'm going to have to check
the
in
bed
with you
in
guys.
half.
Sleep in different beds. And we're like, yeah, you try to stop us. And that's at 16 years, but that's the power of a secure, intimate relationship of what we're talking about here.
Well, that's true. It's true. And that's interesting too, because like that relationship, it feels so wholesome and so safe, and just they're so flirtatious and just so nice. And it just creates such a good and cozy environment. When I show up to their house, I sleep for 3 days. Yeah. It's too comfortable for me.
It's safe for you.
Like it's too, like as a third party, I walk
observing the marriage, he feels safe.
And I'm just like, oh, this is so nice. I just got to take a nap. And like, I don't take naps. I got shit to do.
No.
I'll work 14 hours, no problem. And I go up to like Adam's house, I can barely like do 2.
That's the power of oxytocin. It just exudes from our being.
Like, tension in this house. I can't work here.
It is. No, he had to leave to do work. He couldn't even work in my living room because there was too much love.
Yeah, you can smell it in the air.
It is. But that's the power of this method that we're talking about here. When you find, you only have to get it right with one man, but when you build this, that's the power of it for the rest of your life. Like it's that deep. But that's why you have to go that hard at the beginning, because you're filtering for that. You're interviewing.
There's a big difference too. So I have a daughter. My daughter's 7, and when my girlfriend started kind of coming into her life, there was also a particular process that Adam really helped with in terms of how to do that integration, how to get that connection. And, now that it's been almost a year, a bit of the connection between the two, they're so good together and just so comfortable. And it's so nice. Like the feeling of peace that comes from seeing them kind of connect and bond, and even still in early stages, technically speaking, it is overwhelming. That is overwhelmingly attractive to me, and I would assume we also overwhelmingly attractive to you, Aurora, because
definitely
that's
100%.
a big deal.
But also, like, I introduced them to one person once, and I didn't like how he's like kind of too friendly too soon. I don't know, it seemed phony.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
There's a process to do that. And really, there's a very specific process to do that, and there's a very specific way to prepare your kids. How old are they?
So I have a 6-year-old boy and a 4-year-old girl.
Nice, yeah. So basically, same thing as the situation with Ellie, because Ellie started when she was 6. There's a very specific set of conversations and preparations you have to have with them, and then they have to be in control. So it's almost like they have to give you a checklist of things that this person has to do with them, and that can be everything. So, for example, one item that we had a little bit of a challenge with was that Ellie had to be pirates on a boat with my girlfriend. We live in Arizona, damn it. There's no boats.
That was her bonding process.
There was about 12 different items on 2 separate lists that we prepared that had to happen.
Well, and I want to point this out. Like going through the integration process of you and your girlfriend with your daughter, and your girlfriend was very proactive about it. She was right there. You guys had very intense conversations, and she has continued to be very proactive about building a relationship with your daughter.
Yes.
And you actually determined that she would be that way by the way that you dated. If it had been that flashbang cocaine addict at the beginning,
I would never do that.
It would never have worked. So you built the dating process intentionally to see if she could go through that with you, and then you followed through on that by integrating her with your daughter.
Because the thing is, if I had the big bang, explosion at the beginning, and I brought a woman in like that home, and my daughter would ask me, "Who is she to you?" or like, "Why do you like her?" And I'm like, well,
she's the flavor of the week.
That's right. Well, it's because we have hot fun in the bedroom is not the answer you can give to your children. I just like the way she looks. No, it's not an answer.
That fosters a very certain sort of daughter later in life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you just can't.
Okay, but can you, you don't have to share this if you don't want to, but how long did you wait? And do you think that matters? Ooh. Both of you, how long did you wait to like be intimate?
To be intimate? Well, we're actually withholding on sex until marriage because we're both Christian, and so we're doing that shebang.
Because you learned your lesson.
Because I learned my lesson. Yes, I have learned my lesson truly, and I'm actually trying to do things differently because I'm trying to follow all of the things, all of the checkbox, kind of like similar to what you had, like spirituality, practice. I practice orthodoxy personally. I like the way it is. I like the way it's structured. I like the way it's restrictive. But the problem is, to get into it, you cannot do half measures. You cannot do half a practice. I only show up to practices half the time. Does not work for a team. Does not work for a person. Does not work for a skill set. So for me,
is she Orthodox as well?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So we kind of both aligned on that, and that was like one of the foundations for the beginnings of the conversations. But many more things aligned as well. So like the intimacy aspect is kind of a complicated one, but we're both withholding from that experience until marriage, which is kind of a pain in the butt.
But there's so many other ways to build intimacy slower and smarter so that when you get to that, it's better. Most of the men in my life, even the atheists at this point, say, I'm not doing it outside of a committed relationship.
Yeah.
And a lot of them say marriage nowadays. The men, not even the women, the men.
It's better that way. I got to say, as frustrating as it could be, like on the physical level, it is better that way because you will never have a moment when you wake up next to that person in the morning and they look at you and, she in her eyes has the questions like, what if I'm pregnant? Will you leave? And in your, response, in your eyes, she reads like, maybe? That's it. That's terrible. That's panic. A horrible experience. Yeah. You never want to have that.
Well, and there's the aspect too, like the men who can't wait at least for an exclusive relationship. Like, okay, congratulations. You have less emotional discipline than a stray dog in the street.
Pretty much.
Like, you can't even hold it back for like 3 months or 90 days to get to know this girl. Like, congratulations, bro. You are barely even a man.
Yeah, exactly. You're barely even a man. It's just such, early stage masculinity where you're just basically so raging with hormones, like, you'll just sleep with a rock type of thing. Like, have some nuance to yourself, like have an elevated experience. Human sexuality is such a beautiful thing that coming in and just, throwing it out is just in a moment and in an hour, in a date night, like it's just so basic. You're just losing, you're missing out. What's the point?
Yeah.
So it needs to be beautiful. You want to have beautiful things, you have to spend the time. It always works like that.
I will say I've never met anybody who was married, who had sex on the first date that was happily married.
Never?
Never. Yeah. Not ever. They can get married, but my gosh, they are not happy.
What about what's kind of your take on this, in terms of especially intimacy and dating and all of that?
Yeah. Well, I was that person that had sex on the first, well, it wasn't even a date. It was like we met it. We we had mutual friends. We were at a concert. I ended up hanging out with him. I was 25, he was 40, and we had sex at the first date, and then like every day for 3 years after that, and then never again. No,
Right?
But, I mean, not really, but
It just kind of burns out, right?
It totally did. We rode the high for as long as we could, but once it's dead, it's dead. And recently I had an experience with a guy who I really did not want to sleep with. And we had gone out on a few dates, and it had been like 5 dates, and I wasn't really attracted to him. Like I knew I really wasn't in the beginning, but he fit everything pretty much on paper. And so I was kind of trying to make it, I was holding out to see if maybe something could grow. And he was pressuring me, and I ended up I just had sex with him just to like make him happy pretty much. And then he dumped me like a couple days later. And not a couple days later. We went on another date after that. I think he tried to make it seem like it was, but I knew exactly what it was. Like, he could feel that I was pulling back. He knew that I wasn't really into it, but I gave him what he wanted, and then he didn't really have anything else.
Sex needs to be the culmination of the emotional intimacy, the bonding, and the trust, and then you say, "Okay, I will now share this with you." That's what it's supposed to be.
As you get older, you get wiser, right? That's the thing, right? And when you're young, and unfortunately, we're not properly taught what intimacy is supposed to be at a young age.
not
We're actually
anymore.
taught the opposite. It's like be hot, run around, fall in love, have sex in the stands, that type of
Yeah,
thing.
the boomers rewrote that playbook.
Yeah, thanks, guys. And now we're stuck with this shit. So, that's what we're taught. And then as you get older, you realize that none of that is actually real intimacy. All this is, sure, it's like dopamine chasing, it's everything but. And then you get so caught on to fakeness as you get older. It's like all it takes is like one wrong kind of action or one wrong intention. And you're like, yeah, I know this is not going to work anymore. And you can try to force it. And I've had experiences too where it's like, you can I think maybe, but then it's not quite right. And then, you go into the relationship and it just works out exactly how you thought. Because you knew from the beginning. Because you
knew from
the
the beginning. I know, that's so frustrating
Yeah.
when you realize that you knew all along and you should have just listened to your instincts.
And you should have talked to the other person about it. And that's the second half. So many times today, we do not have conversations with anybody else. We play games, we wait and see, and then we try to guess what they're going to do. Have a conversation. If it's feeling strange, tell the other person. If it feels confusing, tell the other person. Ask them. One of the biggest power moves I ever saw was one of my dating clients sat down on the first date, just talking with a woman, having a good time during the first date. And he stopped halfway through the date. He said, "So just checking in with you. How do you feel this is going?" And just sat like straight up. She was like,
"Oh my God, somebody did that to me once and I freaked out."
She
I didn't
did.
freak out, but I was just like, "Oh."
she did. She was like, And he was like, "No, I mean, honestly," he said, "I'm having a really good time. I'm just checking in to see how you're doing."
Maybe he was on a date with me.
Maybe so. Maybe so.
How did yours go? What was the receiving end like?
But she actually, in this case, it confused her, but then she liked it. 'Cause she was like, "Well, you're telling me that you're having a good time. I'm having a good time too." He said, "Awesome." And they went right back into the date. But now he said she had better confidence in the second part of the date because now she could actually tell. He just was on the table. "I'm having a great time. I think you're fantastic. This is cool." And a lot of women, their biggest complaint is they don't know where the guy's at. They don't know if they should text him. They don't know if it's okay to ask. They don't have no idea if he liked her or not. So men that are just like, "Hey, I had a great time. This was fantastic, and I really like you." Just straight up at the end of the date or something like that, giving that level of confidence and communication without being like aggressive about it. That level of openness.
I like it at the end of the date. When the guy did it to me in the middle of the date, the thing was like, I knew I was not going to have a second date with this guy. I knew I wasn't attracted to him.
Oh, yes. Okay.
So, and I
Different.
didn't want to be like, we're halfway through a meal and be like, I actually don't see this going anywhere.
Yeah. If read the room. If
I guess, that's a power move indeed.
If she's like on her phone, leaning back, looking for the exit, don't ask her how you think the date's going. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that.
Gently set the restaurant on fire and leave.
Yeah, right. Who started this gasoline fire? Yeah.
Yeah, that's wild. Wow, this is actually such a great conversation, Aurora. Thank you. That was fantastic and amazing. Yeah,
we don't get to talk this openly about dating. I appreciate that. Our female
No, I
audience.
feel like I got a therapy session in one. I feel like
Well, shoot, there we go. Our female audience at home, a lot of them are dating avoidant men or have, and they're trying to overcome exactly the same pattern you're overcoming. So your questions you asked, beautiful. That's the questions they ask us in the comments.
Well,
all
that's
the time.
actually it's one thing that we started doing is that I actually went on and did therapy sessions with Adam live. We also had some other people coming in, just kind of doing therapy sessions, specifically coaching sessions. Yes, in the middle of the podcast, and it works out so well. Honestly, people love seeing this.
Yeah, I love doing that for people.
So if you're ever interested, come on.
If you ever want some free coaching on here, I'd happy to.
Definitely.
All right, let's do it. Let's get on the books.
We'll fly you here for the next one then.
Yeah, for sure.
Amazing.
That'd be great.
Well, it'd be awesome. But anyways, thanks so much for coming on. This has been a fantastic conversation. I think we literally ripped the Band-Aid off everything. And I love that because a lot of people back home, everybody's afraid. Everybody's afraid to talk about these things. They're uncomfortable. They're dishonest. They're everything but just open. And I just love the fact that you can be so open about it. So thank you for the openness. It's fantastic.
Thank you.
Good luck finding the guy. Adam, make sure now you go home, go through your Rolodex.
I swear he's out there. All of my male coaching clients are like, do you know any women that want to get married and have a family? And they're like, because women don't want to get married or have a family anymore. I'm like, what are you smoking?
That's right.
Like, where are you coming from?
Okay, guys, applications are now open.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding.
Send them into Adam. He'll filter them.
I'll vet the suitors for Aurora here.
There you go.
100%. Please do.
There
Think
we
of
go.
me.
Amazing. All right, guys, sounds good. Aurora, where can we find you, your podcast, for more conversations like this?
Yes, because you have your own podcast like this, don't you?
If you want more raw dating breakdowns, honestly, for the most part, it's like dark humor. But you can follow me at Barely Filtered, and that's anywhere that you stream your podcasts, also on YouTube, and then also Aurora Culpo on Instagram.
Amazing. Thank you, Aurora. Adam, where do we go to get better with our attachment?
So I'm Adam Lane Smith, the attachment specialist. My website is adamlanesmith.com. I do have my flagship program, the Attachment Repair Program, where we can walk you in 90 days through fixing your lifelong attachment behavior problems. If you want to build forward into an incredible experience, I do have a 6-month program as well. Slots are limited, but I am taking clients in there. So let me know if you want to do that. I'm also on Instagram as @AttachmentAdam. Andrey, where can we find you and your magnificent hair?
My hair. I'm at Andrey Korikov on Instagram, and you can take a look at what we do on the media side at veritascreative.media. That's the incubator under which we're growing Adam, amongst other creators. And it's been an amazing conversation, guys. Aurora, thanks so much for coming on. I hope we'll have you back sometime. There's a lot more to talk, and I'd love to hear, as your relationship stories progress, like where you end up. So let's definitely touch base, and we'll see you on here sometime in the future.
Yeah, we got to check back in.
That's right. I'm invested now. Let's do this.
See, we got to get you married.
I know, right?
Right. That's right. All right, guys. Thanks very much. Leave us comments, follow, subscribe, and let's see you on the next one. This is I Wish You Knew checking out.